guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiara, aka Bookworm Babe, and today I'm going to be doing my August wrap up, which we're a little late. We're like 9 days into the month, but it's okay, it's here. I've got some really great books to share and talk about. But first things first, like, it is so gloomy and dark outside today. I'm trying not to feel so tired, but it is literally fall, like, in full effect. I don't know if it's just me, or depending on where everybody is, or, like, you know what I mean, where you live, but it has just been, since September started, it has literally transitioned to be gloomy. It's chilly. It's only like 20 degrees tops for the day, like, lately is what it's been. And on top of that, like, the nights are cold. It's like 15 degrees in the night. So it's just cold. It feels damp in the bones, if that makes sense. Hopefully it's not just me, but yeah, no, it is fall, like, in full effect, like, literally in full effect. But I'm happy because I love fall. I love pumpkin spice, I love pumpkins, I love, like, the whole Halloween feel, the leaves, everything. So I'm happy, but the transition and feeling it, like, just feeling it in my body is just giving me, like, you know, that I want to stay in bed feels. But that's a quick little update on, like, my feelings currently. So let me get into these books first and foremost, because that's why we're here. So in July, I had actually forgot a book, like a book that I read. I forgot to include it in my July wrap up. Super like clumsy on my part, but I forgot, and so I am going to make sure I include it in this month, because I know there were some people who actually really wanted to know my, like, verdict on this book. So I am going to absolutely make sure that is shared. So the book that I'm talking about, that I had forgotten, is called An American Marriage, and this is by Tayari Jones. So a couple people had messaged me on Instagram because they were like, oh, I really want to know what you think of this book, because it's, like, on their list, or they're considering reading it. And yeah, silly me, I forgot to include it. But here we are. So this book was a very solid read. I very much enjoyed it first off the bat. So it's about a couple, Roy and Celestial. They are in their, I believe they're like early 30s, like 30, 31. And, you know, they had just got married not too long ago. They are celebrating their 1 year marriage anniversary. And this is where things go very wrong. So Roy is mistakenly arrested for something that he did not do. So he and Celestial had gone to visit his parents, but Celestial and his parents had never really had the greatest connection, so she didn't want to stay at their home. They got a hotel instead to stay at while they were in the town that Roy is from, and they ended up getting in a big fight and decided to take, like, a 15-minute break from each other just before things got crazy and anyone says anything that they shouldn't say. And while Roy is out, he runs into this old woman and talks to her and whatever, and it's just a pleasant, brief interaction. They come back to the room, and suddenly there are police at the door, and they are arresting Roy because apparently this old woman was assaulted, and she pointed to Roy as the person who did it. And so right off the bat, we're thrown into a case of, like, unfair justice here, because Roy is thrown in jail for 12 years. Well, the sentence is 12 years. And for a section of the book, we get to see the letters that are exchanged between Roy and Celestial. So it's just all their letters going back and forth, and in the beginning it's very heartfelt, it's deep, it's a husband and wife. They're like, I miss you, I want to be with you, please write me back, tell me about how everything's going, and stuff like that. Roy is obviously having a very hard time, you know, adjusting to his life in prison, and Celestial, on the other hand, is having a very hard time dealing with life, just being, like, alone without Roy. But as time goes by, the letters get a little different, the tone changes, it becomes more sparse, and a few things transpire, and basically by the end, well, not the end of the book, but by the end of the portion, which is just letters, they're very sparse, and then Roy and Celestial don't end up speaking for 2 years. And I believe Roy actually only ended up staying in prison for about 6 years, because Celestial comes from a very well-to-do family, and her uncle was actively trying to get Roy out of prison and working on his case. So Roy was a businessman prior to that, and Celestial was an artist, and she makes these very special dolls. That's kind of her specialty. And also, as Roy's in jail, her career starts to take off. She starts to get a bunch of recognition, and a lot of her dreams come true. She gets to open like a shop front, just things that she always wanted. And alongside, Celestial's best friend from childhood, his name is Andre, those two begin to form a relationship, and this is where things turn into like an entanglement. It turns into, you know, the whole stirring of the pot that we want to read about. Celestial and Andre have known each other forever. They've always been very close, and of course Andre has always loved Celestial. And in the end of the story, Celestial and Andre end up having a relationship, and then Roy comes out of prison. He knows, but he doesn't know. It's not confirmed about their relationship. But Celestial ultimately has to make that decision between her husband, because she did not divorce Roy while he was in prison or any of that. So legally they were still married. And this best friend who she has always loved in a sense, and has formed a deeper relationship with after her husband is gone for, you know, a few years, several years really, in jail. So yeah, that's kind of the base of it. I don't want to give away too much of the details, her final choices, and some of the other little fun things in between the book. But overall, I'd give this like a 4, maybe like a 4.5 star. I really enjoyed it. There were parts where it was kind of a bit boring, on the boring side, but for the most part, it was a great read, and I got through it very quickly. So yeah, it was just overall definitely worth like picking up if this was something that's on your list and you want to read it, especially if you like you know, that little bit of drama. Definitely give it a try. So the next book that I had to start off August was this book, which is called Brown: What Being Brown Means in the World Today to Everyone, and this is by Kamal Al-Solaylee. So this was a book that I had actually got since, I think it was early this year or late last year. It was a buns trade, and I had got it, and I kind of sat on it for a while, and then just given, I guess, the climate we're in nowadays, and just, you know, I realized that I have this book sitting on my shelf, and I know there's a whole bunch of education in here, so I went for it. And this was really amazing. First thing I will say for sure is this is a 5-star read. So the author, Kamal, travels through a number of countries and is able to depict the experiences of people who fall under the category of brown in our modern day. So as he goes through each country, he talks about the people he meets, their experiences, their stories, and basically how they're treated in wherever they are due to their skin color, how their skin color influences their life, their careers, their mental health space, and their history. So he goes to Trinidad, he goes to the Philippines, he goes to Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, he goes to France, the United Kingdom, the United States, and then Canada, and he is a Canadian author as well. So what he does as he goes through each place is again talk about the experiences. So when he went to like Hong Kong, for example, he was talking about how a lot of the domestic workers in Hong Kong are from places like Indonesia or the Philippines, stuff like that, and those people are of course classified as brown based on their skin tones, and because of that skin tone, it plays a very specific part in the types of domestic work they get, the type of treatment they get, their employers. So, you know, the natives of Hong Kong who are employing these workers, have preferences as well. They would, like, for example, they prefer a Filipino worker over an Indonesian worker, and then it all kind of ties in with skin color and colorism and shadeism and just things that affect people's mind state when it comes to their interactions with people. So one thing that I really liked about this book, because at first I genuinely didn't think that it was going to include the Caribbean. Just truthfully, I didn't think it was gonna include the like Indo-Caribbean side of, you know, the brown category, but it did. He did go to Trinidad and talk about the experiences of like Indo-Trinidadian people, a bit of the history, and just into what the experiences are of you know, Indo-Trinidadians. And I was very happy about that, because like I said, I didn't think that it was going to be covered, because I mean, traditionally Indo-Caribbeans get left out very often of the brown category when it comes to, you know, when we speak of South Asian and like the South Asian diaspora, Indo-Caribbeans just often get left out. So I wasn't necessarily expecting to be included in the book, well, like culturally to be included, but Indo-Caribbeans were included by way of Indo-Trinidadians, so that was great. I really liked it, and just overall I enjoyed his approach. I liked the way that he talked. He went everywhere and really covered everybody's experience and how it plays into our lives, how it plays into just the current climate that we're in, because I believe this book came out in 2016, so it's only 4 years ago. And so it's not that long ago. And let's face it, from 2016 to now, we're not necessarily living in a completely different world. So I would definitely recommend this if you're looking to kind of like get some knowledge, get a better understanding of like colorisms and shadeisms in the brown community. And that is not specifically South Asian. This involves like, you know, just everybody who falls under it. He also covered like Mexican people in the United States. He talked about people who are brown in Canada, whatever that may look like, because people immigrate from all over here. Like, it's just a very broad category, and brown doesn't necessarily just mean South Asian either. So again, if you're looking to like expand and get more of a sense of that in terms of what brown is and how that experience is for all of us, I would very much recommend this book, because it was a 5 out of 5 for me. The next book I have, so I spoke about this in my last video, which I did my top 5 for my halfway point through the year. I didn't go too heavy on it, but I will get to talk about it more now. So that book is Monday's Not Coming, and this is by Tiffany D. Jackson. This book was amazing, guys. I couldn't put it down. 5 out of 5, 6 out of 5, 7 out of 5, whatever you want to. It was amazing. I could not put it down. It was so good. It is such a thriller in a sense, and it keeps you on edge. So basically our plot point is two best friends, and that is Claudia and Monday. Claudia goes away for the summer to her grandmother's house, and her and Monday, again, they're like the most inseparable best friends. They're damn near sisters. Claudia is calling Monday. She writes to her, and she never gets a response. Very weird, very out of character. But she doesn't think too much of it at first. When she comes back home a couple days before school starts, first thing she wants to do when she runs in the door is call Monday. But Monday's phone is like disconnected and there's no answer. Again, very weird. But Claudia's mother is like, don't worry, we need to fix your hair, you got school, you'll see her on the first day of school. The first day of school comes, and there is no Monday. So at this point, Claudia is freaking out. She's like, where is Monday? Basically where our story starts, and we follow Claudia just trying to locate her best friend. So there's two sort of point of views of the story. There's the before, and then there's the after. And it can be a bit confusing because you're kind of reading the after and you're thinking like, how is this the after? This feels like it's like connected to the before. But this is where kind of the twist comes in at the end of the story, because basically Claudia she has these really like crazy moments where she loses touch with like where she is, how old she is, and the fact that it's been it ends up being 2 years since Monday disappeared. Sure, I want to mention as well to you guys, there is a trigger warning with this book because one of the overall themes of the book is child abuse and just everything that comes with that. So there are points in the book that point to the fact that Monday had like bruises on her. She was definitely being abused, and towards the end when everything kind of comes together, we see that Monday was absolutely being abused at home, she and her siblings, and her mother was the one who killed her, as well as her little brother, and that is kind of the premise of what happens in the book. Claudia knows something's wrong, and everyone's just kind of like, oh, you guys are at that age, you never know, maybe she you know, doesn't want to be friends anymore. Claudia runs into Monday's siblings, her older sister April, and she'll try to ask her like, where is Monday? And everyone just tries to give her really like shrugged off answers. Oh, she's with she's with her dad, she's with her aunt, whatever. And obviously none of these are true. And yeah, in the end we find out that Monday had actually been dead for 10 months at the time, by the time she's found. So it ends up being very, very tragic, but the whole journey of getting there, like, it kind of drags in a bad way, but it drags because you're like, yo, what the hell happened to Monday? Like, where is this child? It's very intense, very crazy, but absolutely amazing. Like I said, 5 out of 5, 6 out of 5. I highly recommend picking this book up if you guys are looking for something really good and something to keep you on your seat to read. Last book that I had for August was American Dirt. So, first thing I'm gonna say off the top here is when I picked up American Dirt, I was not aware of the controversy around it. And if you guys are not aware of the controversy around it, definitely, you know, look it up further. But what I'll say is, from what I know, basically, is just the fact that the story follows a mother and a son. They are Mexican from Acapulco, and they're dealing with basically being on the run, trying to cross the border into America, after their whole family is murdered by a cartel boss who the mother is actually friends with, well, was friends with, because he would often come into her bookstore, and she didn't know at the time that he was the cartel leader, but finds out later, and by that point it's too late. Her husband is a journalist. He is often covering the cartel stories, and after publishing a very big expose on the leader of this particular cartel, what happens is, you know, it just, everything kind of kicks off from that point, and hence where our story goes. So the controversy around this book, first and foremost, was that, so the story talks about, you know, Mexican, like a Mexican family, culture, experience, the whole immigration, crossing the border, trying to get to America, and it is not written by a Mexican author. The author is Caucasian, so people were not too happy about that, because obviously it is, you know, you're not getting the story from somebody of that culture depicting it, and you know, there's a lot of like Spanish used in the book as well, and people have commented that some of the Spanish isn't correct, things like that. So there is controversy for sure around this book. When I picked it up at the time, I saw that like it has this like sticker that it's part of Oprah's book club. I had found it at Costco, and I was like, oh, it's part of Oprah's book club, how cool. And then I just kind of like read, you know, the inside, this part, and I didn't even look at the back where it actually has like the author's photo. And again, so I wasn't aware of any of these things until somebody had commented on my Instagram post when I had posted a photo of the book when I was reading it, and kind of brought it to my attention, and then I looked it up to see what exactly was going on. At that point, I was already about 100 pages in, and I was really, really involved in the story, and I was really enjoying the story. So what I will say about this book is that the story itself was, I personally thought the story was really good. I thought it was a very well written story. I enjoyed the plot. It really kept me on the edge of my seat. There was so much action. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. And there was some very sad moments. And it made me cry at a couple points too. It really did. But what, again, like, my point here being is, if you are gonna pick up this book and you want to read it, be conscious of the fact that it is not told necessarily from the most authentic point of view, and what you're reading in this book is not something that we should generalize and think that, you know, this is a very like great representation of like Mexican people and Mexican culture and, you know, things like that. This is, you know, it's just not something that we should take and generalize people as a very common experience, or like the characteristics of like an entire people, if that makes sense. So that being said, as well, I would give the book probably a 4.5. Again, I really enjoyed it. There were a couple moments where I was sort of like, it kind of dragged a little bit. And I was also just kind of on edge with the characters, and I wanted to know what was gonna happen next. I wanted to know where they were gonna end up. It's not too long of a book. It was, how long was this? It's like 380 pages, 380 something pages, I think. Yeah, 370 something pages. But it's a very heartfelt story. It's a mother and her son after their whole family gets literally killed at a quinceañera, and yeah, that's basically where it goes from there. You know, they're moving through Mexico, trying to get to the US border. They're hopping on trains, trying to, you know, make up ground. They get kidnapped at one point and have to pay a ransom. It's very, very, like, it gets very, very intense. So it's a very solid read, but like I said, just culturally and in terms of, you know, the author and stuff like that, keep that stuff in mind. And if you, that's just kind of what I gauged from like the 1 or 2 articles that I read. If you want to know more before you even like consider it, that's definitely cool. And there's more than enough things that you can probably Google and find out, like, I guess, whatever else more that you may need to know before considering, you know, picking this up, if you so choose. That is it for those August books and that one July book. But those are the reads, and they were all very, very solid, very, very good books, and I enjoyed each and every one of them. I hope that you guys will pick some of these up too, because I promise you, like, you will enjoy them. And it's about to get cold, like really cold. It's about to be cozy weather. Get your blankets, get your candles. You might as well just like get some good books to like cozy up for the season, right? And honestly, like, you know, we're still in COVID, so who knows what's gonna happen if we're still like quarantining or gonna go back in quarantine. I don't even know, but if we do, again, like, might as well get some good books to keep us entertained. Oh dear. But yeah, that is it for me today. Next week I'm going to start my other series that I wanted to do, just getting into like writing and more writing tips and editing tips and sharing things like that. I'm very, very excited to start those videos as well, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them too. So thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you read any of these books. Let me know your thoughts. Will you pick them up? Will you not pick them up? Whichever, it's all good. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.